Welcome to the Patch 38 update notes by yours truly, Frosty Mate, professional speedrunner and somewhat okay Bloons player. Yeah. Alright, cool. We've got a new patch on our hands today. Who would have thought, right? It's almost like that's in the title here. But this one has got quite a few different things going on, so I'm going to quickly run them through. Starting with new boss balloon, PHAYZE. So what does PHAYZE do? PHAYZE has got the camo property and spawns with a reality shield that increases its movement speed. While the shield is active, the monkeys can destroy the shield to reduce PHAYZE's movement speed back to normal again. So somewhat similar to what we have going on with Dreadbloon there, except this is a little bit different because PHAYZE triggers a radar jam every 24 seconds, which will restore its camo property if it's been lost, and for 12 seconds grants PHAYZE immunity to any form of camo reveal, as well as disabling all shared camo granting buffs from towers. So what this means is that you're going to have to rely on towers that have natural camo properties, as that cannot be stripped from those towers. Towers like Mad, Ray of Doom, towers like Ninja. All of those towers there, the ones that can just naturally get it in their abilities, those are going to be fine. Things like Village, on the other hand, things like Shimmer and Embrittlement, those are going to be a little bit less fine against PHAYZE here. When Radar Jam occurs, PHAYZE also pulls all balloons forward to PHAYZE's location and grants them the camo property. So again, really trying to emphasize that camo style there. When each skull is reached, PHAYZE rebuilds the reality shield and warps forward while opening a tear in the fabric of reality that allows for all balloons to spawn further along the track. Note that the warp is proportional to track length, so shorter warps on shorter tracks and prepare for startling warps on longer tracks. This is pretty much to counteract a certain meta that has built up for a long time in the Bloons community in terms of bossing, where you will place all of your defense at the start of the track to try to burst it down immediately, whereas I don't think you're going to be able to do that with PHAYZE, especially considering that skulls will also trigger a stacking slow aura around PHAYZE, which reduces the attack speed of all monkey towers until the boss is defeated there. So this is going to make for some very interesting stuff. It's no longer going to be about just purchasing one tower like a Paragon and then trying to burst through it, because that Paragon's going to get really, really, really slow. And next up, another key feature that we've got added here, the Contested Territory Competitive Mode. We've heard community feedback and have wanted ourselves to keep teams, to help teams define themselves as competitive or casual. So we've developed a system that allows teams to set their stance to attract players with the same mindset, as well as sign them up for each CT and lock in those teams' rosters to acknowledge and help address some of the team griefing that's been happening. So pretty much what's been happening is that certain players, when they've been coming up against some of the top teams, have had really top level players come in to try to grief the leaderboard system that happens and try to knock some of the top teams out of contention for the top of the leaderboard on contested territories here. We'll have to see exactly how that works out for them. Each CT event will now consist of 2 experiences, competitive and casual. CT events will start with the pre-register time period, starting after the previous CT ends and lasting until 24 hours before the next event begins. For competitive stance teams, once 5 players sign up for a competitive play with a team screen, or the mayor assistant signs them up, a team will be registered for competitive mode for that CT only. Any teams that do not pre-register in time or that create an event that has already started will instead join a casual event. So this is very much so you have to lock in for an entire week. So I'm going to come out and say that I don't necessarily, how do I say this? I don't like the fact that I have to dedicate an entire week where I have to play like 2+ hours to get a good time every single day. And now I have to lock in for this sort of stuff here. CT is already such a massive time sink for the most part. And I kind of feel like if you want, I get it. If you want to be on a top level competitive team, sure, that's the case there. But I don't know, man. Now you have to pre-register and everything. Now you have to go through all of this here. Now you have to have 15 people organized. This is starting to feel less like just a silly, funny monkey game. And now you're trying to go like WoW raiding or an MMO raid where you have to organize like 40 people. And, everyone has to be here on a Thursday night, 6 p.m., alright? We're all gonna try to be Ragnaros, the fire balloon. Rewards have been slightly changed with global rewards and badges for any kind only available for competitive leaderboards. Casual teams will not have access to these rewards whatsoever, and daily login reward will remain regardless for casual or competitive modes. The ticket system remains unchanged for both modes. Individual tickets are rewarded daily, with unused tickets being available to the rest of the team. And players who join a competitive team after an event has already started will not allowed to be participating in CT until the next event starts. So again, you must lock straight in. You must sign away a week of your life for the sake of not necessarily fame and glory. It's just for the sake of popping balloons for 14 other people who are like somewhat reluctant to do it as well, because I mean, it's a pretty big time sink, and let's be real, like, I don't know, the benefits of doing so, while are like a little bit nice, aren't necessarily So those are all the big system changes out of the way there. We've got Water Park. Seems very cool. New quests, all very cool stuff. New trophy store items, new CT stuff, all nice and lovely. Added bronze and silver map borders for completing all easy medium medals. I love this change. Similar to cash earnings, regrown balloons will now no longer count towards increasing a tower's damage stat when they are popped repeatedly. So this is actually a huge system change, because what we've seen in the past, especially with the rise of least tiers and least cash, is we've seen people gain access to competitive regrow farming for bosses, where the fastest boss completions will have 6 hours of penalty time because they just set round 76 down with a handy dandy, what is it, a Morglaves, a downdraft, that sort of stuff, and they would just repeatedly end up farming those balloons over and over to get a really high tier Paragon so they could beat the late game. Now that is no longer the case. That's not going to be an option for it. You have to play it the normal way instead. Alright. And then we just got the bug fixes here. I'm pretty sure there is no massive bug fixes, right? Resolve some issues with how wind knockback effects were applying to balloons outside of the map, blown back out to the entrance. So this is another subtle nerf to downdraft. So they're really going after downdraft this update, by the way. This is... What would happen is that if you were to leave a Chinook up at the top of a map and you had a balloon that was outside of the map there, the Chinook would naturally continue to try to fire its darts at it, but the blowback there would end up just knocking it outside there, so it didn't get affected by the darts. And so this meant that you could, again, infinitely stall out time for abilities and such and allow for regrow farming, all that fun business there. Alright, tower-specific fixes. Dart Monkey 4 and 4 Monkey Knowledge would now apply to the Dart Monkey Paragon. Well, that's an interesting one. What is the 4 and 4? I do believe it's the discount one here. Oh no, that's come on everyone. Oh, here we go. Dart Monkey's triple shot gets 4 shots. So you're telling me that the Dart Monkey Paragon now gets a 4th little shot there every 4th shot? Okay, that's pretty cool. It's monkey knowledge, it sure is. So yes, Dart Paragon does in fact get 6.25% more damage now. Awesome. Cruel Mob can no longer debuff Dread Balloon during the military immune phase. Sounds about right. Resolved an issue creating a permanent Magus flamethrower attack. Well, that does kind of make sense there. Upgrading a crosspath druid to X3X changes target priority to strong. I actually preferred it when it changed, like kept it at first there, but hey, you know what, whatever. X3X druid can no longer grab frozen balloons without popping them. Thank God. Monkeyopolis now gives the correct amount of cash in half mode and resolved an issue beat the purchase cost being wrong. Here's a big one. Engineer Paragon sentries are now correctly destroyed when their platform is removed. So for those who don't know, this is again referring to when you want to be able to instant kill a boss. What a common strategy would be place all your 3 NG turrets onto an ice platform there, immediately sell the ice platform to be able to get that burst of damage without selling the Engineer Paragon. So now it actually works again like it's supposed to. Engineer Paragon no longer defaults to throwing out a green sentry after every save. Let's go! There was nothing more frustrating than having Engineer Paragon reset. So you would end up in the quest to beat round 100 for a particular boss. You would end up chucking out 2 turrets, messing up on around there, and because you'd already chucked out a green turret once there, it would default back to it, and you would end up completely screwing over your run there. So that is a massive change for boss players. Beautiful stuff. Placing tower in Pat's radius will now show a grayed out Rallying Roar buff icon. Oh my god. Oh. Dude, this is the best patch. This is the best. They have done it. They have made the best UI change that they could possibly have ever made. You can now actually figure out what Pat's Rallying Roar radius is. Thank God. There was nothing worse. Because, for those who don't know, Pat's Rallying Roar does not follow Pat's radius, because Pat's radius has an incredibly short amount of attack range. You just cannot find that placement there. So you pretty much had to just kind of eye it there and just kind of be like, oh, this looks about right. So now you can just do it. It's so much better. On to another big change. Geraldo's restock rates are no longer 1 round longer if used from full stock. So what would end up commonly happening is that you would actually get punished for leveling up Geraldo to level 20 there, because you would have a full shop, and instead you'd want to try to use as many of the items beforehand so that you could continuously maintain a nice stock rotation there. Alright, let's just go straight onto the balance changes, because we've got some bangers in store for today. So let's start with the Dart Monkey. So the Dart Monkey Spiker Pult, not reheating towers after... Oh, not reheating towers. God, that's friendly fire there. Not reheating targets after a rebound in the same way as Juggernaut isn't as fun, so making this functionality occur right now, actually kind of a big change, especially for races. And what else are they adding? They're adding some extra price reduction onto the Paragon, as it turns out that Dart Monkey has kind of gone down a lot in the tier list now, so now they're adding the price reduction back onto the Dart Monkey. And they're going to functionally add that back onto the Boomerang Paragon once again, as they're adding some extra range onto the Boomerang Paragon to give it a little bit more of a meaningful range choice now. They're adding that extra range radius onto Glaive Lord, as well as nerfing Permacharge a little bit. 5 seconds on a very strong tier 5. Makes a lot of sense there. Permacharge is a win condition for a lot of maps, where if you can just save up to a Permacharge, that's pretty much going to save it until the 90s there. So that's awesome. On top of that, the Paragon Orbit no longer deals +2 damage to Fortified. I mean, let's be real here. A Boomerang Monkey is probably going to end up just shredding through most rounds anyway, so not that big of a deal. And adding that Paragon price back on there makes a lot of sense. Boomerang Paragon. I've always said that Boomerang Paragon was one of the better Paragons, because Dart Monkey Paragon kind of relied on having walls to hit off of and getting that really nice bounce bonus there. However, Boomerang Paragon, especially with all the extra stuff that they added on, was already quite strong in the first place. So I think that adding a bit more price back onto it here makes a lot more sense. And especially considering the fact that, you know, if you want to get a half-decent Dart Monkey, you have to invest another Crossbow Master into it there. It kind of ends up evening out. Now, here's a big change. So essentially what they've done here is there's a bit of a Bomb Shooter rework here, or a bit of a Bomb Shooter big buff. So what they've done is they've added a big buff to really big bombs. And I've always said for the longest time that really big bombs, the top path cross path here, the tier 3, was functionally useless on the bomb tower here. It was a save up for balloon impact. Now it's going to end up pushing back balloons. It's a small little pushback there, but it is still actually a bit of a buff to it. So now there is a reason to get really big bombs, and now it may not be an actual awful cross path now. So let's see exactly just how much of a knockback this is. So let's just give it a few ceramics. wait, where's my pushback? Where's my pushback? There's your Kiwi. There's the... Oh, okay, I see it. You actually have to give it a little bit there, especially with the black balloons. Oh, I need to give it not frags here. Here. So if you have a look here, it very, very slightly just shifts them backwards here. Like you can see it just very, very briefly just shifting it back there. Yeah, I mean, you can see it, right? It's a bit of a knockback there. But I think where this really gets emphasized would be with something like a balloon impact here, where the stun now is, wow, look at that. Well, as you can see there, it certainly does do quite a bitty there. Anyway, I'll give it some more ceramics here. But yeah, the pushback here does actually seem quite nice. I'm starting to think that getting a balloon impact is going to become a little bit of a better option now, because I feel like with all of these buffs, it's actually starting to become a decent option. It's making quite the impact, you could say. So on top of adding that extremely small pushback there, they've also added a stun duration increase for balloon impact. Also very nice. Now also pushes balloons back on every hit in addition to the stun. Beautiful. So some big buffs to the top path cross pathing there. And on top of that, we've got a recursive cluster pierce increase once more, because they really, really, really hurt recursive cluster. I'm talking like they really hurt recursive cluster. It went from being a very, very solid option to being borderline useless in the space of one patch. And so now they're adding some power back into it there once more. Great change. Another big change coming straight afterwards here, Tack Zone has had a bit of a change around over the past few patches. So they took out some attack speed initially to try to bring Tack Zone back into line here. And what have they done once more? They've actually reverted it a little bit. So they've gone and given it a bit of a buff up here, an extra 10%. But what have they done in return? They've halved the pierce, and this is a massive nerf to the Tack Zone. This might not look like a big change, going from 4 to 2, but one of the strengths of the Tack Zone was being able to shred through rounds like 96, 98 there, and so having half the pierce is really going to cut down on your ability to do that. It used to be the case where Tack Zone would actually be able to handle rounds like 63 on a favorable map, and now that is absolutely not going to be the case whatsoever. Tack Zone is now going to be purely a mid-game tower, which is going to be good at dealing with maybe a few ZOMGs, but is definitely going to fall off past the round 90s. I don't know if the tower is dead, but I do know that the tower is severely nerfed at this point. And I'm not going to say it's unwarranted, because the tower is incredibly strong for a 22,000 tower. And I have to see, we have to give a bit of a test here. So, let's give it a bit of a test, shall we? So what's a fair old test? I think a fair old test would probably be, we give it a few buffs here. You know, this is about where it's at. Let's give it round 96. Now, I'm not saying it'll handle round 96 well. But, oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah, this right here is the real test, is can it deal with these ZOMGs? It seems fine against the ZOMGs, but even still, it's the mobs that come afterwards. It's struggling. Now, I've been told that my tack placement is suboptimal here. You left projectiles off? Fine. There we go. So, let's just give it a regular build, shall we? You know, let's just say, got a permacharge in there. Got a handy dandy Prince of Darkness in there as well. And let's just be around 96 here. So this should be a pretty fine test as well. And you know what, let's give it an improvement as well, because why not, right? Now thankfully, with a build like this here, it does cover the attack zone's weaknesses quite well. However, the damage is certainly noticeable. The real test is 98 though. The real test is around 98. Because this is the mother of all layering rounds here. If you're able to beat this, yeah. So what you want here is we want to see just how well it deals with these UMGs. And it seems like it does fine, but you have to remember that this is a max efficiency tack zone right now. This is underneath the track and everything. So it deals with it. It just struggles. And where I would expect a tack zone to be getting the most pops there, it gets outclassed by a Prince of Darkness. So kind of a big change. I think the biggest thing that this will end up affecting is maps like Flooded Valley. There was a tack pat strategy on Flooded Valley where you would make use of the tack zone. We're going to have to try that out and see if it still ends up working out as well as it does. So, big change there. But there are more nerfs for tack zone, of course. Because Ring of Fire is having its pierce reduced all around the board here. Simply because it has too much pierce straight off the bat. Do I agree with this? Not necessarily. I felt like Ring of Fire pierce crosspath was actually incredibly strong, and it's a bit of a shame to see it get nerfed as much as it is, but hey. Now, onto some interesting changes to say the least. There are more tack zone changes, of course, because we've got Blade Maelstrom changes now. So the initial pierce of Blade Maelstrom is being reduced, and only by crosspathing it now, with the faster firing crosspath, will you get it back to its 200 state. So it's gone down to 120, back up to 200. But even more interesting on top of that is the bottom path crosspathing there. So that one is the more tax variant that you're going to get. So upgrading it to the first tier will now change its rotation direction to counterclockwise. So on specific maps where you're going right to left, balloons would oftentimes kind of skirt through the handy dandy Maelstrom activation. And so on top of that, we've got some Super Maelstrom changes here as well. As you'll see that the Maelstrom changes are more duration based. For the bottom path crosspathing now you get another second if you crosspath it with the bottom crosspath there fully. Super Maelstrom also gets the same amount there, where it's getting reduced from 500 to 300. Not a huge change, honestly, but again, the bottom path crosspathing now means that it may in fact be better to go for a bottom path crosspath with Blade Maelstrom, especially for that Super Maelstrom there. Getting an extra activated seconds means that I believe with Energizer it should end up being a near full uptime. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? So, how long does this exactly last? That lasts for about... Wow, that lasts for ages here. Let's add in the primary mentoring here as well. How long does this last for? That's near full uptime! Super Maelstrom now has near full uptime. Okay, let's take away the Energizer though. So Super Maelstrom has 75% uptime with bottom crosspathing now, with a village. What about the full top village though? About the same. Honestly, just a little bit less, right? But, hey, that's a pretty cool change. Will it increase its viability? Probably. Being able to spam it out. The problem with Super Maelstrom isn't the fact that it has downtime. It's the fact that the ability in of itself can still be somewhat weak. Right? So, for example here. I mean, you know what, let's go all out here, right? The ability can sometimes be a little bit, how shall we say, questionable. However, when you're able to do stuff like this is the problem here, is it struggles against fortified super cerams, right? And that's why Super Maelstrom has, in the past, been kind of overlooked. As you can see, against all the Moabs here in the BFBs, it does amazing. The problem is that on most expert maps, or on most hard maps, you're not going to have this ability available all the time. So, will it be a viable option? We'll see. Plenty of attention has been drawn to the power of ice. So we're nerfing Arctic Wind. I love how Arctic Wind has gone through its phase of Arctic Wind being unused. So what did Ninja Kiwi do? They buffed it up. When people realized Arctic Wind is busted, Ninja Kiwi is now dialing it back down. So I believe it actually had 40 PS before. They brought it up to 100. They brought it back down to 40 again. Absolute Zero, same PS. And they're also nerfing Cryo Cannon so that it has 20% shorter freeze lifespan as well. So I guess we can just show that very, very quickly here. Against a few ceramics, of course. It still manages to hold them in place, mind you. But it's just, if it's trying to focus on other towers in the meantime there, then it's going to end up affecting it. So essentially what this is imagine you got like a spike balls, or, you know, let's just say, chuck a few mobs. The real question here is, yo, yo, new strats, new strats. Awesome. Glue Gunner. So as we've all known, Balloon Solver is a very beginner-friendly tower, especially after the rework there. And so they are now giving it a slight bit of a tone down, with Glue Gunners only dropping puddles from the first child in the split there, meaning that it is no longer incredibly busted, just very good. Just very good. So they will also no longer hit camo balloons innately. Again, probably a bit of a fair change. And that's it. So it's no longer going to have this ability to incredibly shred through rounds 98. Just doing a lot of work against them. So here, I'll give it again bit of a godly display here. Bit of a godly display from the Balloon Solver. It's only a nerf pre-Super Ceramics? Oh, interesting. So we're talking like at around like 78, for example. It's still, okay, so it shreds those rounds, but I guess a better display would be something along the lines of like 75. Where it will hurt 70, doesn't even really hurt 75. No, doesn't. I guess. Nope, this tower is still busted. It doesn't really change anything. It's just a race nerf. Well, there you go. They just nerfed it so that they could change races there to not be as reliant on Balloon Solver. You heard it here first. And Relentless Glue stun now stuns DDTs and blue mobs for 0.25 seconds there. Okay, so, I mean, you know what? I still don't use Relentless Glue. I still don't think it's necessarily the greatest tower. However, it does some stuff. It does some stuff. Sniper Monkey! Sniper farming gets a bit tedious late game. So now they've added it so that Elite Sniper's Elite Supply Drop will now also trigger all of the Supply Drop abilities. Just a really nice quality of life change. Monkey Buccaneer. Small tweaks to the long range upgrade to improve its additional PS benefit for its number of attacks. So 101 long range, more PS to main projectile, +2. Cannonball PS gets to 35 now, and Frag's PS gets to 2 there on that Monkey Pirates. So again, just a nice little bit of a change on the cannon ship there. Don't think it really affects all that much. Monkey Ace. So they've increased the Monkey Ace Pierce once more to be able to go back to 2000. Now on to the main change, I would argue, for this patch. Heli Pilot. Given Downdraft has competed as one of the most debated best towers in the game, basically for its entire life, both early and late game, we are reducing some of its extreme effectiveness against late game Super Ceramics by reworking it to have an overall increased effect of blowing back multiple smaller children at a time, but now requiring 2 Pierce to blow back ceramics. At the same time, the Tier 4 support Chinook is also having a large increase to make it a more powerful, real endgame option for a late game version of Downdraft that can quickly deal with large groups of Super Ceramics. What does this mean? This means that Downdraft here, if I read this correctly, the rate of Downdraft is a little bit slower now, and the Pierce has increased. Pretty cool. However, it's going to be slightly worse against their ceramics. So why make this change? Because Downdraft is arguably one of the top 5 towers before this change. Downdraft, for its price, for everything that it does, was just absurd. And this has gone on for multiple patches at this point. I pretty much started this like a year and a half ago where I said, Downdraft is way too good of an option for how much it costs, for what it does, and for how efficiently it stalls out the game. And it has continued to be that way. Nerf after nerf after nerf after nerf. Do I think that this will kill Downdraft? No. I still think that Downdraft will still be a very, very strong tower. However, they did appropriately end up kind of shifting that power a little bit into support Chinook, which I think should be the way that it is approached. Because for Downdraft's effectiveness there, you paid about $5,000 for it, and support Chinook essentially did nothing. But now with support Chinook having all this extra added ability onto it here, it may finally start to become a more enviable option for dealing with late game Super Ceramics there. But it is a big price increase. You do have to pay, instead of $5,000, you have to pay like $15,000 instead for it. So we'll have to do a bit of playing around and see exactly how big of a nerf it is. So let's have a quick look, see, shall we? So I think a good base rate here would be about around 91 levels, right? So it still deals with like decent groups of Super Ceramics here, right? Like, you know, it's still able to juggle it, but we add in a few more in here now. And you can see it's starting to struggle a little bit. You know, a base rate heli would be able to deal with this perfectly fine. But as you can see, now some of them are starting to make it par. So, again, this is only about 3 mobs worth of Super Ceramics, by the way. So this is already kind of a big change. So, let's just get these off here. And let's just build an actual proper defense here for the time being, shall we? P-Spike there. Look, I'm not... No one said this was an optimal defense, okay? But this will really go to show just how much Downdraft got affected by this here. Because, you know, Downdraft was used in certain situations with a defense setup like this, right? Oh lordy, is it struggling. So even with this here, even positioning it here, it's just not that great. Now it's not a group ceramic stall, no. And to put it in perspective, when we get upgraded to Chinook, it still deals with them, but now it's a lot stronger at dealing with them. Now you could say, it doesn't blow as much. See, that's actually a really respectable change to it. Chinook is about 3 downdrafts now, which is honestly the way that it should be, you know? But also, look at this range increase on the boomerang monkeys here as well. Now stalling is even better with Moab Press. Look at that, look at it. It's beautiful, man. To be fair, I think they kind of needed to make the changes to stalling here, because otherwise, with the range change, it would just be way too good. But look at this, dude. Look at, I mean, dude, it's still doing. If you install the ceramic, then repositioned all your towers, now you can't? Yeah, exactly. And now look at her just dealing with this entire group of ceramics here. There was no way Downdraft would ever deal with something like this before. And now Chinook kind of does that. So, very cool, very cool. Dartling Gunner. We weren't ever able to take the laser shock in the direction we initially hoped to, and due to this, the 203 crosspath has fallen behind in value and overall use. So we are improving some crosspath values here to fix up the damage with the bottom path buckshots. So they're giving the buckshot bonus damage here from the shock 1 to 2, from 1 to 3 here with the bads, and the BEZ from 1 to 6. Do I think that people will end up using this? It's fine. One of the main reasons why you would end up using this crosspath would be to end up stalling ceramics anyway, so I don't really think this will have terribly much value, but this is still kind of a big buff. Don't get it twisted. I mean, let's just give it a 98 here, you know. A classic P-Spike moment. Hey, would you look at that? This just absolutely annihilates these rounds, right? You know. We are having a classic BEZ moment here, after all, where it does kind of just, you know, destroy literally everything. Except 98, which is kind of one of its rounds where it struggles a bit. Well, let's have a look-see here, shall we? What? Dude, what is that damage change? Huh? Dude, this thing absolutely annihilates it now. That's insane. That's absolutely... what? Wow. That is silly. That's very... now I have to know if it's able to pretty much solo a bad. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's all coming together. That is dumb. That's real dumb. To put it in perspective, so, you know, let's do the same test again here. So, faster firing here. Yeah. That damage is significantly less, right? Wow. Holy. New gym spinner? Okay, I think that the real test here for me, T2ers, the real test for me is the mid tiers here, right? So with a BZ or a BDS, bads, with something like 63, which is kind of the round where you'd need it to be able to handle. Is it able to handle something like this? Yeah. Yeah, the 203 and the 204 are significantly harder to micro, which is the reason why. Is because this is what you're using it against, is rounds like this, right? And don't forget, you're going to need a radar scanner village in there as well, because you're not going to have camo cross-pathing anymore either. So again, another tough round. You know what, let's just send 81 against it. 81 is kind of a round where it starts to fall off a little bit here. And it crushes Super Ceramics. Holy moly. So, yeah, as a bit of a save-up tower here, I can see it, man. I can see it. I feel like the BEZ should pop lead. I feel like BEZ should pop lead. Like, leaving bads not popping lead, that's fine. But BEZ, come on. And before they say, no, it's the only way to keep the tower balanced. It's like, dude, the tower's already incredibly strong. It doesn't need that. doesn't need, like, I don't know. I think it's silly. Yeah, I mean, dude. Good change. Actual good change. I don't think that this beats round 82 by itself here. It might. So this was better as stalling. I think this is better at stalling, but the problem is that sometimes the damage is just not there. Oh, leaked. Oi. Why stall when you can just delete Super Ceramics? That's kind of what I'm saying. Alright, next up we've got Wizard Monkey. Phoenix is still very good. We're giving it a light nerf, so we're making Dragon's Breath cost slightly more. That's a fair change. Dragon's Breath is still one of the best towers in the game at the moment. Phoenix now requires the camo cross path for Phoenix to see camo. Should have been in the game in the first place. Don't know why it wasn't. And now something Phoenix beloved Phoenix Micro has been restored. No idea what the hell that means. I assume it means that your Phoenix now targets whatever you're targeting as well, rather than just the first target in the track. Let's just test it out here for a quick second here, shall we? So, you know, let's just give it around like 63. We're going to target this to last here. And yeah, now it targets last rather than... And then we put it back to first. Now on last. Back to first. So yeah, pretty much if you want a micro Phoenix, now you can by microing your wizard instead. Very cool change. On top of that, Necromancer targeted spawn can now be reset back to default by activating the target option, then cancelling without selecting a point. So this was the case where on a dual lane map where sometimes you wanted to target a specific lane for a single round, you would end up targeting that lane, but you could only ever select that lane or the other lane again, and it would never be able to go down both tracks. A good indicator for a map like this is a map like Mesa. So on a map like Mesa here, you would end up getting your handy dandy wizard. What's a good thing to feed this? It's like some rainbow balloons, right? And as you can see here, we've got some balloon spawns going down both sides of the track now. However, if you ended up targeting it here, it would only ever go down this track from this point on. And I mean, there's no way for you to select both tracks anymore, so you'd be stuck targeting one track forever. However, now you can select no target and it will go back to normal. So, very cool change. On top of that, Wizard Paragon no longer drains 100 mana for every single balloon hit by the main attack. Instead, each main attack drains mana by 50. And all of this is pretty much just a case to say, hey look, we're making the Phoenix Firebomb just a little bit more. It's more incremental here across the board. Some small little changes here or there. We want to try this idea for a while for Super Monkey, but Tech Terror's Annihilation ability now will knock back surviving targets by a large amount. Well, we gotta try this out now, don't we? Just how wacky is this? Just how wacky are we talking here? Because Tech Terror, bottom cross path, this is a fine cross path. It's not the greatest, but it's fine. But, knockback. That's not what I expected it to be at all. I was expecting it to just go ricocheting back along the track there, and instead it's just, yeah. I'm kind of underwhelmed. I thought that this would be a big buff. I thought that this would be huge. The faster balloon it fires, the further it gets hit back. So what, like, say we give it 98 here, right? It's a bit of a nudge, but it's not that. It's not all that much. It's like a little mini Moab press, except you have to pay $30,000 for it. Do I think it's a big change? No. I in fact think it is quite a small change. Do I think it is going to define the meta? No. But it is a neat change. Now, again, another big change though, getting straight back into the swing of things, is the Ninja Monkey. We're mindful that it has been this way since launch, but this is so that Ninja Monkey can be a little bit more balanced for casual and Apex players, as Ninja Discipline is a little bit too strong. Ninja Discipline is kind of the go-to upgrade for a base Ninja Monkey there. So instead now they've removed that and they're putting it on Seeking Shuriken instead. So, do I think this will change much? Somewhat. It may end up hurting Ninja Monkey just a little bit. However, the reality is that you're still going to end up going for both of those crosspaths for the most part. Where this really hurts, and where it didn't need a nerf, is that now your 3-2-0s and your 4-2-0s for your Ninja Monkeys, now they're significantly worse! And let's be real, the middle crosspathing for those didn't need a nerf. So what's the deal with that, hey? So on top of this, now that they've increased the tower range for sticky bombs here, but they're removing half of the bonus and still it will match the base tower. So it's no longer got those full range map stickies that you're using. You're used to using here. Now instead has to adhere to the range that it's got. That's fine. Drew the Storm is still inconsistent due to causing projectiles to intersect the path and spend very little time actually touching balloons. Is getting some homing NATOs running along the track to consistently utilize the high PS value. Will, how this is working, I hope you do too. Will part tier 4 also getting a bit of a buff. So it gains homing and also gains some travel distance as well. And Superstorm also gets a price reduction because it's still too expensive. So, what's a good round? Let's go at round 15 here. maybe not the finest round. Okay, let's go around 21 here. Hey! That's some actual half-decent targeting there. I mean, it'll obviously still struggle on double-lane maps like this. But that's some actual good stall option now. What? Hey, how about that? That's really cool. Huh. Okay, what happens when we upgrade it to, like, ball lightning here? Okay. Not bad, not bad. I mean, you know, again, not a great map to showcase this, right? Let's go on to a better map to showcase this. You know what? Workshop's probably a pretty much a better one here. Again, what's a great round for this? Probably something like 35. Let's go 35 here. So the blowback here it's still not very significant, mind you. But it's still decent, right? Like, it's still going to do something. Whereas before, it just wouldn't do a hell of a lot at all. That's honestly probably one of the better changes that it probably could have gotten. Simply because, I mean, before, I really did not like Druid of the Storm at all. But, I mean, do I really think it's going to be better than it was? Absolutely. However, do I think that it's going to end up being meta? No. And the Vine Brambles here on Jungle's Bounty getting increased from 1 to... I really like this change. I think that Jungle's Bounty was still underwhelming, but now that there is a reason to upgrade it, I may actually end up using this in speedruns now. Fun little factoid. To really showcase this here... This is around the price of a Jungle's Bounty here. 63 is not a really good showing for this, but hey, I'll still show it off anyway. It's not a really great one, but you know what? We'll still show it off anyway. Now, here's kind of the big tester. Does this beat round 63 by itself? Oh, it gets close. It gets a lot closer there. Which means that this may actually just be better for dealing with... So, for example, this would be better at dealing with rounds like 49 instead. Where it still ends up dying here horrifically. But it's honestly not even that bad. And again, to put it in perspective, 4 druids here, all on first. Getting hard thorns doesn't affect the vines at all, does it? Except for what it targets here. But yeah, you can still... It really, really struggles with these Saram rushes here, right? I'm targeting first there, doesn't really do anything. So yeah, the jungle's bounty change there seems very cool. Kind of a big fan of it. Excellent stuff. Spike Factory. Further balance for the 401 crosspath. While this does already see some niche use, it made sense to increase its explosion radius with the larger tower range. A flat pierce is added to increase the middle tier 5's base attack to reduce its crosspath dependency. Excellent! So now you can actually end up trying to go for bottom path crosspathing rather than using top path there all the time, right? Nice. Finally, we enjoyed the hard-hitting nerf to perma-spikes early game, but admittedly, this change didn't really make much of a change of anything for its end game power while impacting pre-round 80 games far more. So we're redoing the nerf into a pure attack speed nerf alongside an increased benefit to start the round rate buff to reduce the necessity of playing slowly with it. Love this change, personally. So the blast radius on spike mines, I don't think this makes a huge dealio here. Some niche cases, sure. Smart Spy's passive ability duration going up very slightly though. So this is a very nice buff on maps like Workshop where you really want to have that Smart Spice activate immediately and get a little bit more of a spike pile going there for early defense. So some pretty cool changes there immediately. I like this one. Bit of a buff up to spike balls again. Carpenter Spike's main attack gains +5 pierce. Also another great change for it there. Honestly, Carpenter Spikes kind of fell behind quite a bit simply because you would... So on around like round 98 is where it would really struggle. I'm going to turn the lives off here, Quest. I'm going to turn the lights out real quick here. And you know what, I'll get White Hot Spikes in there as well. So now it actually is able to deal with a lot of these a little bit better. Wow, look at that. It actually deals a little bit of damage to everything. Unfortunately, it's still going to run into this problem where... Wait a second. Give me a million once again. Dude, okay. I didn't realize this. I didn't know that Carpenter Spikes could get blocked if it was underneath the tower. That's amazing. It's essentially like it's like a tack zone. You can put it underneath something and you can just burst it down if you really wanted to. This is a cool little change. I don't think it really will do a heck of a lot, but you know what? It's a lot better than it was before, that's for sure. Because it would struggle against 98 here. You would essentially invest $50,000 to not be able to beat round 98. Not great. Is it a lot better against it? Not really, but still. I guess what we really want to change up here, or we really want to see, is we want to see the difference between the two crosspaths there. I don't believe it gets affected. I don't believe Carpenter Spikes gets affected by bottom path crosspathing, but it's worth a shot. Wait a minute. Who wins? A Carpenter Spikes or a singular DDT? Yeah, so the ability there doesn't really add a lot. I assume that this is just mostly for the spike life. Yeah, for the spike lifespan here. Yeah, it's still struggling. Please tell me good night. Have a great one, Hope. Have a great night. It's still going to end up struggling a hell of a lot there. Okay. The Permaspike changes, on the other hand, these are kind of big. So Permaspike gets its pierce back. It gets that damage back, you know, but it gets reduced a little bit, back to 10. Now instead, it's going to get a attack speed rate nerf. So this is going to work worse with towers like Overclock and everything, but the round buff duration here, the starter round buff, goes up to 10. So you don't really want to stall out rounds anymore with Permaspike. You just want to go fast. And to really emphasize this, gotta once again go back into Monkey Meadow. Now watch this little fella down the bottom here. So yeah, it's got that attack speed buff there, and it'll go. It'll go for quite a bit. But, oh boy, is it firing a lot slower than before. And really emphasize this, even with Overclock here, it's still going to end up stacking up spikes quite well. Something tells me I don't think a single Permaspike can tank all of round 98 here. Not even... I mean, it got through a little bit. I mean, it tried its best. So yeah, that's a big change to Permaspike. They're giving it back all of its previous power, but instead hurting it quite a bit. So, do I think that Permaspike is a bad tower again? No. I still think Permaspike is going to be a good tower. However, you probably... See, the thing is that you kind of wanted to pair Permaspike with an Overclock, and now you probably don't want to pair it with an Overclock. Actually, with an Overclock, it still might be really good because you just Overclock at the start of the round there, and you get that entire 10-second duration of just double attack speed, essentially. Yeah. So I guess you just have to be a little bit more choosy about it, you know? I don't know. Monkey Village. Another big change. We're nerfing Minneapolis back to half of its original base value. So instead of producing 2,500 a round, it's now producing 1,250 a round now. So, do I think this change is fair? Yeah. Do I think this tower is still incredibly good? Yeah. Will it probably still see play? Yeah. Will it be as oppressive as it was before? Slightly less. Now so the only difference is now that instead of getting it before round 40, you may have to wait till after round 40 with bosses, alright? Small little change. Beast Handler. Here's the biggin. We've got a big bunch of Beast Handler changes. Try saying that really fast 5 times. Big bunch of Beast Handler changes. Big bunch of Beast Handler changes. Big bunch of Beast Handler... Blah, 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 blah. So, first things first. Orca getting a price reduction. Much needed. Orca's a good tower. It's just way too expensive for what it is there. Kind of big. Adasaurus attack cooldown scale is now going down. And Velociraptors is as well. Because it just gets way too much benefit from merging there. On top of that, the pierce and the range is getting reduced as well on Adasaurus and Velociraptor, because there was no real incentive to go past I believe it's a 10 power Velociraptor or a 9 power Velociraptor. Now you're going to be incentivized to go up to higher power Velociraptors there to make sure that you get the most out of it, if you want to get that insane ceramic clear. So overall, this is a fair nerf. Don't get me wrong. It's just, this is going to hurt a lot of those cheap save-ups there. For a regular player, this change means nothing at all. However, now you're going to have to invest a lot more into it, so it is what it is. On top of that, Pookie, Big Bird, got a bit of a pierce reduction there as well. Honestly, fair. I mean, it's still good. Small little Adora change here as well. Long Arm of Light, cooldown increase, kind of fair. She's really strong at the moment, and the main attack pierce has been reduced as well. Adora is still one of the best heroes in the game. That's not going to change. She's slightly less oppressive now, however. They need to add in the UCAV ability, naturally seeing camo balloons, because of PHAYZE now, affecting Etienne, because Etienne gives a camo granting buff to everything, and PHAYZE will strip that away from everyone there. So, UCAV being able to naturally see camo balloons, kind of important. And on top of that, we're seeing some vortex changes once more. We're seeing some stun changes all around here, and as players have gotten more knowledgeable, players have been able to play around vortex a little bit easier with the stun there, and Paragons will no longer be able to resist that anymore. So the early stun tiers for regular vortex here have gone up, but the rest have gone down significantly. As you'll see, for tier 5 here for elite, it's gone down from 40 to 30 seconds, but your Paragons will no longer resist any of that. So that is honestly a very good change. I think vortex is still quite easy, but you know. And last but not least, we're seeing some Lich changes as well, where a lot of cheeky players would have something like an overclock going and then sell off the tower, you know, like on a permaspike there or something like that, and then immediately sell it off. Now Lich will just end up sucking those away immediately. So again, pretty much Ninja Kiwi just slapping naughty players on the wrist here, just going, no, you have to play fair. Makes sense. So that is the entire patch. So it's a pretty big patch all round, you know? We're seeing a lot of big balance changes. I said this before, but overall this is a really small balance. It's a big balance patch, but it's a small patch to what they actually added into the game. So it's really nice to see that Ninja Kiwi continue updating the game here. I hope you guys will let me know what you think about the balance patches as well. I think the biggest ones for me, overall, probably look at the bomb shooter here, the balloon impact. It's going to be a big buff to it there. On top of that, I think that something like the downdraft here, the BZ ended up really surprising me with how much the shock bonus added on there as well. So I honestly think that's a kind of a sleeper hit there too. On top of that, some Ninja Monkey changes here. I do think they'll end up affecting things. Tornado, awesome change. Jungle's Bounty Vines, love to see that one. And on top of that, I mean, hey, I love the Siphon change here. So, going forwards, what do we got to look forward to? Consoles, getting access to Bloons Tower Defense 6. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But the big one for me is the map editor, where we can finally have people just coming in, making Among Us face maps, and just playing on those, just non-stop. Can't wait. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Alright, toodaloo. Bye-bye.